Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. I'm with Oculus Rift Reviews. Today we're going to review and play LA Noire, the VR Case Files, a game on the Steam store for the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift. It normally retails for $30. It's currently on sale during the Steam Winter Sale 2019, 50% off for $15. I actually bought this back in 2018. I played it. I got pretty close to the end, but I just stopped playing. I ran into several technical issues. I wrote a review about it. But recently, the game got an update, 11 gigabyte update. So I was intrigued by that. I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and finish the game. I actually started from the very beginning. So it took me about a total of almost 6 hours to complete the game. And the game has resolved all the technical issues that I had experienced earlier. So before, I experienced random stuttering. The game would just stutter all of a sudden and it became almost unplayable. Then it would be playable again. And it was just one of those things where you just played it, it would randomly stutter. You'd have to wait until it stopped stuttering or reload the game, then you can play again. This time around, though, I experienced none of those issues. In fact, I really only experienced one issue where the game crashed, and I had to manually quit, manually close the game out, restart. Upon restart, though, I was able to start fine. On the community forum, some people on other headsets, not the Oculus, I believe on the Vive and maybe the Valve Index as well, people have had difficulties with starting the game. Apparently, you need to start the game without Steam VR also running. So be aware of that. Start the game, but make sure Steam VR is not running. Let the game start Steam VR on its own. And it's also going to start the Rockstar launcher, so beware of that. It helps if you already have Rockstar launcher already on your system, if you have a previous Rockstar games. Just be aware of those issues when starting the game. On the Oculus, for myself, I just start from the Steam library with Steam VR not running and just start the game, and it starts just fine. It does take a while. Actually, the thing that takes the longest is to get the Rockstar launcher to get up and going. But once that starts, the game starts pretty quickly. The game runs a lot smoother. It looks good for an older game that was ported to VR. The 3D models look really nice, and in some ways this game is very groundbreaking for VR because you're able to look at the characters' faces when you're interrogating or interviewing them and sort of figure out if they're lying, whether they're being honest, whether they have a hidden agenda, basically if they're being deceitful or not. And that's really amazing in VR. That's the best thing about this game. Unfortunately for LA Noire VR, about everything else about the game is pretty mediocre. And one of the bad things about Rockstar, or what they did with this game, is there's content here that's less than the content within the non-VR version. And there's even less content on here than there is on the PSVR version. The PSVR version has 3 minigames, a boxing minigame, a racing minigame, a shooting range minigame that you don't get on the PC version. And I think that's awful. I don't know why they would make that decision. But obviously, money greed wins, and we get a lesser product for that reason. If you have played this game in non-VR, if you already finished all the cases in non-VR, there probably is no reason to replay it, since it is the same cases, just less of them. And so therefore you're going to miss out on, the best part of this game, which is, solving the mystery, whodunit. Although there is certain reasons to still get it if you just love VR. Obviously, like I mentioned before, doing the interviews, doing the interrogations, and actually watching the suspect in front of you and being able to see their facial expressions in VR is amazing. And obviously it's groundbreaking. I hope more games in the future decide to do stuff like that. this game has been out for a while and that really hasn't happened, so that's a little sad. But the rest of the game, I don't know. There is full locomotion and smooth turning now. That was one of the things that wasn't present in the game, in the early versions of the game. I believe the early versions just had two types of teleportation and also arm swinger. But now you do have full locomotion, smooth turning. That's awesome. But a lot of the interactions are just really bad, especially considering the state of VR in 2019, coming on 2020 pretty soon. These interactions are very bad. There's no other way to put it. And if you watch my video, you see me trying to interact with several things and just having difficulty. And it takes me multiple attempts to finally get the proper interaction. Something as simple as opening a book is just really difficult here. Something that's required, which is turning a dead body to inspect the pockets, inspect the dead body to try to find evidence, is difficult in this game just because of the way the interactions are. Now, I did play seated for most of my gameplay. You can play standing and room scale. This game would probably be easier with room scale as far as the interactions. But keep in mind, the interactions are still really point and click highlight and then press the trigger to interact with the object. So even then, this is still very basic interactions, very poor, especially compared to modern VR games. It's pretty bad, and it just makes the game feel dated. The driving in this game is sort of enjoyable, but again, there's much better driving games. Although I will say this for this game, for LA Noire, there's not many games where driving is not the focus, where the driving is as good as in this game. So even though I don't think it's good, it's definitely still better than most VR games that aren't focused on driving. So the driving does work. I had no problems with the driving. You can get from point A to point B, but it's not polished enough that you'll have the desire to go driving around town. And so that's where I was at. So yeah, it's fun for a little bit, as far as driving, especially because you can run over pedestrians. You can cause crashes, and that's fun for a little bit. But if you drive around the city for any extended amount of time, you'll eventually figure out that it's just not polished enough. It's not just fun enough. The interactions are too basic, and you'll decide that it's just easier to warp from point A to point B. Thankfully, this game does let you do that. The other mechanic here is also boxing, believe it or not. So a lot of the suspects that you're going to interview, that you're interested in interviewing or interrogating, you're going to have to fist fight them. And again, it's fun maybe the first time, but after the third, fourth time, it just becomes way too basic. Again, there's not much here to the boxing, especially outside the mini boxing game, which I haven't played, by the way. And as you can see here, I was just punching when he wasn't blocking, and I easily won. There's not much to it. The cases are interesting, except there are some puzzle elements that feel misplaced. So for the most part, a lot of the interrogation, a lot of the questioning fits in within you being a detective, you being a police officer, and investigating a crime, and that feels awesome in VR. However, they also threw in some puzzle elements that just feel out of place. And this is my problem with LA Noire, non-VR, or VR version. For example, there's this one coin puzzle where you have to align the coins in a certain way. And especially in VR, the interactions are so bad that it just makes the puzzle very unpleasant to play. And it just feels out of place. What does this coin puzzle have to do with solving this ongoing criminal enterprise that you're investigating? It really has nothing to do with it. It seems like they tacked on that puzzle just to add a layer of difficulty, but it's an artificial layer of difficulty. It really makes no sense. It really feels out of place, and it actually kind of takes you out of the immersion of actually being a detective investigating a crime.
Start talking, Erto. I want the names of
Overall, though, I did have fun. I have a lot of problems with GTA. I have a lot of problems with Rockstar, the way they decided to sell this game. But this is a good VR experience. I consider it one that you have to experience, even though it's very clunky, even though it's dated now. It's still something that I would advise any VR enthusiast. This is a must experience, just for the experience, because there's really nothing else like it in VR. However, I'm going to give a buy on sale only recommendation. I'm going to rate this game a 6.5 out of 10. There's a lot of good things about LA Noire VR, but there's almost as many bad things about LA Noire VR. So you gotta take the good with the bad. Overall, yeah, I had a fun time, but it's also a little frustrating at times, just dealing with all the problems the game has. But at least now it runs smoothly, at least for me on the Oculus Rift. On a 1060 GTX, at least there's no deep technical issues that just make the game almost unplayable. At least it's been fixed already. I'm Fast Lawyer. I'm with Oculus Rift Review. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
That's the best I can do.